Hey everybody, I'm Steve Patterson, correspondent for NBC News, and welcome to NBCU Academy. I've covered just about all of the major fires out west over the last half decade, which have been some of the most terrifying and destructive forces I've ever seen. Today we're going to talk about how to report out in the field on wildfires and things that you should think about while you're out there. First, let's talk about why journalists should cover wildfires. There are a number of very important reasons why we cover wildfires. First, and maybe most obviously, is to assess the incredible threat they pose. Wildfires are an enormously destructive force with the potential to eradicate vast amounts of wildlife, decimate homes and neighborhoods, destroy infrastructure, cause long-term harm to the environment and air quality, uproot thousands of people from their homes, even claim lives. The second is to identify the ripple effect these destructive forces can have and why it's so important to actually be there. The only way to truly relate to what's happening is to document the struggle for control, the harrowing attempts to escape, and the devastation left behind. And it's all so much more impactful when you see it with your own eyes. You have to realize at all times that due to the nature of these fires, just one, and sometimes the one you're covering, has the potential to affect thousands or even millions of people for years to come. Your job is to make that as clear as possible. Wildfires are important to both local and national audiences because of how dramatically impactful they are. Obviously, for a local audience, first and foremost, it's all about safety. You are a journalist at the most fundamental level, providing a public service. The information you're able to relay about the threat the fire has, the homes that are being ordered to evacuate, the shelters that are available, the roads that are unsafe or closed off, could be life and death for the people that live in that area. So it is vital that you are timely and accurate here. Every detail and every second counts. On a national level, safety is still number one. Just because you have a wider audience doesn't mean that a significant part of that audience still isn't at risk. So everything from covering it at a local level still applies. However, your goal here is a little bit different. You have to first explain to people who have never and may never see a wildfire in their entire lives. You have to tell them why it may be so bad where you are, and to do that, again, by being on the ground and describing what it's like there, interviewing the people that are impacted and describing the threat that they face. Beyond that, fires on a national scale have implications far beyond the threat zone. They often take an incredible amount of state and federal resources that impact whole regions of the country, both economically, ecologically, and personally. So it's important to make sure your audience understands the gravity of that. There are so many angles to covering a fire. The first thing to do is always to establish how much damage the fire you're on can cause. How much devastation is it doing? How big is it? How fast is it growing? What progress or effort are the firefighters able to make in order to contain it? This is almost always your first wave of reporting on the ground.
For Todd Walsh, this is all that's left. But today, he's thankful his family is still alive.
We got out of there with everything we needed. And our pets are safe, our family's safe, our babies are safe.
From there, it's about telling those human stories. How did residents manage to escape or survive? How are they dealing with the loss of a family member or a friend or a pet or their homes and businesses? How are the firefighters, who've probably been working around the clock, able to keep going? These stories are absolutely crucial. Finally, it's about the impact this fire has. How much damage was done? How is it affecting the people who live there? How much will all the damage end up costing? And what permanent dent has this made on the environment? With all that toxic smoke in the air, which there will be, is it even safe for people to breathe? These are the questions that you should constantly be asking and should constantly running through your mind. So in the field, your voice is so important. The immediacy and impact have to come across in a way for you to tell the story. It's so much harder to actually get across what's happening if you aren't identifying the threat of the fire and using the right voice to describe it. And you might think that starts with tracking or writing or the interviews that you do. And you're right, those things are important.
The images are stark, the impact staggering.
But with fire, you almost always have to lead with pictures and natural sound. There is nothing you can do generally that will be more impactful than showing those towers of flames or the decades of memories lost in a family home, or even the way the sky becomes distorted by all that smoke. So the entirety of the way you craft these stories has to be guided by that fact. On live shots, be demonstrative. Actually show what's happening in the moment. In packages, write to the pictures. Let them guide you so you can frame and tell the story. And be specific. If you have a live element and you need to do something like detailing how much of the fire is contained or how many firefighters are on the front lines, you want to wait for that live tag so your numbers aren't inaccurate when they're in the spot.
Steve, there may be some help from the weather tomorrow.
Yeah, Jose, the National Weather Service now issuing a winter storm warning for this area. Officials here, the ones I'm speaking to, say they don't exactly expect the snow to suddenly end the fire threat, just to slow it down enough so they can make some progress.
Finally, one that often goes unsaid, don't cry wolf. Don't hype up a situation that isn't as threatening as you're able to make it out to be. It's really easy to show a small 200-acre fire burning in the middle of nowhere, and because there are good shots of the flames, you're able to pretend like it's the apocalypse. This really degrades the quality of your coverage overall and makes you a lot less credible for when things are truly bad, and that's when you need to be the most effective. It's been an amazing experience to cover the fires that we do now because the practice has so rapidly evolved from when I started only about 5 years ago or so. That's mostly because, quite literally, our climate is changing. Climate change has rapidly accelerated the frequency and intensity of fires that we now see on a yearly basis. Out west, instead of fires being contained to one season, they're there for the better part of the year. They're a year-round threat. They're also burning larger and in more urban areas for longer periods of time. The 2020 California fires were so huge that we had reporters covering the same fire from different cities in different regions. And because of this, it's now more important than ever to try to weave as much as possible of why these fires are happening. Climate change is pushing fires with hotter temperatures and drier conditions to threaten more and more acres of our country. So it's okay to say that now. The science is widespread, it's accepted, and it's real. As always, the best way to include it, though, is through attribution. If you're on the fire line, one way to do this is to have your station do a Zoom interview with a scientist and include that in your reporting. It is worth it, I can tell you that much. And if you need some quick help on fire coverage or fire science, always have InsaWeb bookmarked on your laptop or your phone. It's the quickest source for where a fire is burning and how big, based on incident command info from local agencies on the ground. The U.S. Forest Service, the Missoula Fire Sciences Lab, and universities like UC and Stanford are incredible for those fire science angles, but the best way to keep up is to always be in touch with local commanders, their media teams, and their social media accounts. More important than anything is to stay safe, trust your gut, stay with your crew, and if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. You can't use any of this if you're putting yourself and your team in danger. Wildfires are incredible spectacles at the crossroads of the power of nature and the faults of mankind. They're so incredibly amazing to actually see and feel, and it's such a humbling experience. Respect that experience, both in your personal safety and the way you report the story. It's some of the most rewarding coverage you'll ever provide. So stay sharp. And if you're going out to cover a fire, remember to be safe and prepared. Check out NBCUacademy.com for more videos like this on how we cover the news. For NBCU Academy, I'm Steve Patterson. Thanks for watching.